As we consider the question of equity, diversity, and inclusion, EDI, I want to leave you with a simple and profound question. Canada, who do we want to be? Regardless of what's happening south of the border or around the world, I believe we're in a transformative moment. This is the time to shed the view of Canada as copycats. It's a time to rise to our own ideals, to close the gap between who we say we are and the unequal social and economic outcomes too many Canadians still face. For example, women in Canada are just over half of the working population from public reporting companies, but still earn 89 cents to every dollar earned by men, even though Canadian women are among the most educated in the world. And of course, when you look at this in a disaggregated way by racialized women, newcomers to Canada, immigrants, etc., that gap gets even wider, and that group makes collectively, on average, about 60% less than men. We also know that, also from publicly reported companies, people with disabilities and Indigenous workers hold just between 0.5 and 0.7% of board and senior roles, but make up 9% and 4% of the working population, respectively. Indigenous and Black Canadians represent 5% and 4.3% of the general population, but make up 32% and 9.2% of the incarcerated populations. These are not opinions, they are facts. These aren't just statistics, these are people. These are our neighbors, our coworkers, our classmates, and even if not our friends, our fellow Canadians. The business case for equity, diversity, and inclusion has always been here and always been clear. The question facing us today in Canada is one of the moral courage to keep going. But here's what makes this moment powerful. We already have a blueprint. Our Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees equality before the law without discrimination. The Canadian Human Rights Act mirrors this aspiration. Both allow for efforts to improve the outcomes of disadvantaged groups through programs and activities that remove bias and barriers to access and opportunity. As the Employment Equity Act Review Task Force, led by Dr. Adele Blackett, reminded us, Canada, more than a century ago, signed on to the International Labour Organization's constitution, committing us to lasting peace built on social justice for workers and reaffirming that commitment in 1944 in the Annex to that constitution, that all human beings, regardless of race, creed, or sex, etc., have the right to pursue their material and spiritual well-being in dignity, security, and equal opportunity. The Canadian Race Relations Foundation, who partnered in this effort today, said this in their presentation to that task force in 2022. There is an opportunity to make employment equity transformative as it helps Canada as a whole see itself. So again, I ask, who do we want to be? To those who oppose EDI efforts, rejecting equity work without offering meaningful options, solutions, is not neutral. It is asking us to ignore these systemic inequities that threaten the very fabric of our democracy. To those committed to EDI and justice, we must be self-reflective. The work must be deeply transformative, not performative. We need to build inclusive systems through meaningful consultation, barrier removal, and real accountability, what the Employment Equity Review Task Force calls substantive equality, a framework which I strive for in all my work, moving to what would be transformative in that context. I speak as someone who lives this complexity. I am a proud Black woman of African descent, a first-generation immigrant and refugee. My family has deep roots to Canada. When providence and opportunity collided to bring my parents here and around the world to work and study in the 60s and 70s, and before that, a historical connection to the Black loyalists whose search for freedom was part of the founding of Freetown, Sierra Leone, where some of my family is from. So it is that I was born in Germany, raised in Sierra Leone, displaced by a war there that was entrenched in global post-colonial trade imbalances and blood diamonds, among other challenges, and eventually came to Canada only to be marked again as other. Today, I watch my Canadian-born children still being asked where they are really from, or I contend with supporting them after they are being called the N-word in our schools, or being told that no one wants to play with them because they are Black. But we, my family, Indigenous peoples, racialized Canadians, people of all genders, abilities, religions, backgrounds, persuasions, cannot be erased. We are part of the Canadian story. We are living in a moment of deep polarization, but it's time to double down, to listen more deeply, to design institutions that make room for all. And through our public institutions, including universities that face singular challenges right now, in this moment, we must protect our role in educating, questioning, and imagining a more just Canada. Because in the end, it's not enough to say we believe in freedom, dignity, and belonging for some, not all Canadians. This is about the unfinished work and promise of Canada. So again, I ask Canada, who do we want to be? Thank you.